Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Time to Panic by Ivy Studios. Time to Panic is a solo or cooperative game in which you are trying to get all your ducks in a row, except in this case the ducks are cards and the game is actively trying to stop you from doing so the entire time. Before we dive into this video, this channel is currently sponsored by Allplay. Check out more about them at the end of the video. But with that, in Time to Panic, the basic idea is there's a bunch of cards. There's all of these cards over here, and you're trying to get them in row as you place cards out into the line. The tricky part is the game doesn't want you to actually get the cards in row, so you're going to have to try to use your cards and abilities to try to get things in order while the game actively incites panic. Genuinely, this is the panic deck, and it tries to stop you from doing so. So, the way a game plays out is you're going to look at your hand of 4 cards. I have 2 players set up. You could do the solo, but I kind of like the 2-player vibe more, so I'm going to show you how that works out. So you're going to go ahead and play a card from your hand. Now the cards have numbers on them. These are going to be the numbers you're trying to get in order, but they also have abilities at the bottom: collapse, flip, switch, and move. Because the first thing you do is you play a card, and you either play it to either end or to any gaps in the middle. Gaps are indicated by these markers over here. So for right now, I know there's a 7 here, I know there's a 25 here. I don't want to play into this gap unless I were to play a flip. A flip is not bad actually, because the reason you want to do that, I'm going to play into the gap. It's a little early, I don't know if I would do that, but I'm going to play into the gap, and then we activate the ability on the card. In this case, that ability is we get to flip a card and perform its ability. I'm going to flip the card, you know what, I'm going to flip this card over here because I think it's more likely to be in the correct order. There you go. You had a higher range, more likely in the correct order, and now we have the switch ability. The tricky part there is the switch ability is not as helpful as you might want. I didn't know it was here. I didn't pre-see this. I set this up as I normally would. Switch is not helpful because when you flip a card, you get to do its ability, which this is switching 2 cards, but I don't want to switch any 2 cards. I could just switch cards and switch them back, because the reason you want to... Oh, well, maybe I could. Maybe if I activate a move or flip, maybe I could do that, because if I switch 2 cards, if I switch the activator... one second, let me think if I can do this. If I put the activator here, no, that won't work, because after... If I do this, that could flip an adjacent card only. Flip a card. No, it doesn't have to be adjacent card. So I'm going to do is it's going to mess up my order, but I'm still going to do this. I'm going to use my switch ability to switch the location of the activator and the flip. Is that what I wanted to do? No, this is not going to work. Oh, yes, there we go. I'm going to switch the abilities of the activator and the edge card. Okay, so we're swapping those 2 cards. Now that I've done that, that's all part of the flip ability. But now that I'm done that, the third step is you perform the ability on one adjacent card. So now I can perform the ability on an adjacent card, which is activator, and that ability lets me activate either of these cards, so I'm going to activate flip again in order to flip this. This is actually a pretty good turn, all things considered, now that I figured that out. Now that I flip that, that lets me again switch 2 cards. The tricky part there is I can't really just get this over here. I kind of want to use the move ability, so let's just go ahead and let's just move this. The flip can be helpful. We're just going to move this over here. Okay, we're going to get that 1 spot over. We'll see what happens later. Not necessarily the best move. That is a turn. You play a card, you activate its ability, then you activate an adjacent ability, which may have changed by the time you get to that step, and then you draw a timeline card. Then you're going to go ahead and draw a panic card and resolve it. So we're going to draw a timeline card into our hand to get back up to 4 cards. We're going to draw a panic card and resolve the panic. Intense inversion. Choose a face-down card on the timeline and turn it face up, then choose 2 face-up cards and turn them face down. There's no face-down card turn face up, some of that's wasted. We have to choose 2 face-up cards and turn them face down. So I think in this case, I'm going to turn down this switch card over here. We'll do that one. In fact, we'll do 2 switch cards to make our life a little easier so that we remember the abilities. We've turned 2 face-down cards, 2 cards, face down. That's going to be the panic card. Now that doesn't stop us in its own right, but it will make things a bit more complicated. Then we'll take 1 more turn, and then we'll go through all the other things you need to know. This player's turn over here, they have to play a card into the timeline. They are trying to get things in the right order. We know this is a 30. Getting it to the end could be helpful. This is a 12 over here. We also have a 13 and 14. That could be very helpful as well. In fact, if we place this over there, that's not the worst. If we play, maybe we'll take 2 turns because it actually might be helpful. I might play... you know what? It's fine. We're just going to go ahead and do it. I'm not saying going to be optimal. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing and why. So I'm going to place this over here. No, I can't do the trade. The trade would be placing a card. You know what? I could do that. Okay, so we're going to do the trade ability here. We're going to place trade. It's not good. It's not good. This is terrible. We'll put this over here. Is that good? I'm trying to optimize too much. It's fine. We're going to put this over here. We're going to put it over here. Okay, so we're going to put the trade down over here. That lets us take a card in your hand with the timeline face down. So we're going to swap a card in the timeline, put this into our hand, and we're going to place the 14 out. We're going to place it face down, which means we do want to flip it face up to get a run of 13, 14. Now the tricky part, and that's it. Then we can't activate an adjacent card, unfortunately. We had a trade off on that turn. We're going to our card, and then we're going to take a card, and we have Stormy Scramble. Shuffle any 3 cards on the timeline, then return them to the original positions, 2 face down and 1 face up. So in this case, because we get one of them face up, maybe we do want to swap these, but I kind of want this in play. We want that there. That's the 14. We're going to take these over here, and we're going to shuffle them, and then we're going to put them 2 face down, 1 face up. This is all part of the puzzle you're trying to do. We're going to do our face up one over here. No, we're going to do face one up one at the end, because having an end ability to activate is often helpful. And we have move. Beautiful. That's actually pretty helpful, all things considered. That's going to go back to the other person's turn. Now we're going to go back to our first person's turn. Even though I told you only do one more turn, I do want you to see some things. So in this case, we can't do that yet. We could do switch. Okay, so if we do this, this is not necessarily that. I'm not trying to play ideally anymore. I'm trying to show you how it works. We're going to do this over here, and then we're going to switch any 2 cards or gaps in the timeline. So we're going to switch to arrange these over here. Now, unfortunately, that means that we no longer have an ability on adjacent card because we no longer have an adjacent card to play. So it is what it is, but we now have a 12 and a 13 together. That's very important. We're going to draw a card over here, and then we're going to look at this card. And this one has, why did I do that? That's the wrong deck over here. We're going to look at the Panic deck. The Panic deck is going to have Intense Inversion. Choose a face down card on the timeline and turn it face up. So in this case, we want to turn this one face up. That's actually very helpful for us because we knew that's a 14. Look at the artwork it creates. Then turn 2 face-up cards and turn them face down. So in this case, we're going to turn these face down because it's very important to us to get this ability going. Now, normally I would go to this hand, but I actually just check to make sure. Yeah, we don't have what I want. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a turn with this guy. This is not what you would do. I just want you to see this ability because it's an important part of the game. I'm going to play this card over here, and I'm going to play it down on this end because this end is more where it should be. And this has Collapse. When you collapse, you take a run of cards, and we get rid of them. This is a run, 12, 13, 14. It's a direct run, and we can now get rid of them off of our timeline, making our lives a little easier to manage. And then we can't activate an ability, we would draw a card, we would panic, but that collapse ability is an important way to get cards out of the timeline before waiting to the end of the game. Because what you're going to do at this point is you're going to keep taking turns. Eventually you're going to run out of cards, at which point you're going to also stop playing panic cards. You're not going to be playing panic cards the whole way through. You have a few turns towards the end of being able to empty your hand and take abilities without the panic deck getting in your way any longer. But your whole job is to have managed the panic well enough throughout the game that you're able to get your ducks or your cards in a row with those last few turns at the very end. Because at the very end, you're going to flip all the cards face up that are face down, and you're going to see what is in order. Order does not need to be exact order, like 9, 10, 11, 12, but it does need to be in ascending order, so 9, 13, 17, 20, etc. throughout this. Obviously, this is not in order because we did not get to the end, but this would be a failed game. We lost. We did not manage to get our cards in a row. That is how you play Time to Panic. Ultimately, in this game, you're going to have a hand of cards. You are playing a card down into your timeline. You're activating the ability on that card. You're activating the ability on an adjacent card. Then you're going to draw a new card to your hand, as long as you're able to do so, and you're going to draw a panic in order to try to rearrange things however you can. The game does come with 2 other decks, Mild Panic and Total Panic. I have won many times on Panic. I have never won on Total Panic, and I have not played Mild Panic, actually. I haven't bothered to do this because I found Panic to be a good level of difficulty for me personally, so I can't comment on the Mild Panic, but I can tell you that the other modes, Panic, I probably have a 50-50 win rate, and Total Panic, I have a 0% win rate. Anyways, with that, let's go ahead and dive into my review, my thoughts and opinions, all of those things, starting off with what I like. In general, the variable difficulty is a good starting point because my very first game on this was Total Panic, and it got just close enough that I felt encouraged to try to play Total Panic a few times until I eventually gave up, and eventually it's not like, I didn't play it like 17 times. I probably played like 3 games on Total Panic before going to Panic, and finding that to be a good difficulty level where I kind of have a good handle on things, but also the chaos kind of throws me off. Total Panic is certainly fun for that craziness, and I do have the goal of eventually winning on Total Panic. For right now, Panic is my level of difficulty. But also, if you find that to be too much, you can move down to Mild Panic, and that'll be even less crazy as far as the way the game throws things at you. Generally, the game allows you. The biggest thing I like about the game is the game allows you to feel clever through all the things you're juggling. Because when you play a card, you're trying to manage multiple things. You're trying to get the card into the timeline in the correct spot where it's going to help you out in terms of the ordering. So playing a 2 down here is not necessarily helpful. You want to play the 2 over here. The tricky part is the abilities matter too. Sometimes the collapse ability is more important than the switch ability. So you might want to play a card knowing that you're kind of trading off where that card goes, but in doing so, you might be able to activate the card's ability, then an adjacent card's ability, and all of those things, you're trying to math out what is the most optimum play. Where do you want to play the card based on where it needs to be, but also based on its own ability and the abilities and what you plan on doing with those abilities, and you can have incredibly satisfying cascading turns. You kind of saw a sample first one, although I was going in blind, so I didn't have the best turn starting off, but the idea that I can play a card, flip a card, flipping a card activates abilities, then I can go ahead and do this, which lets me flip another card and activate that ability. I use the activator, I move things around. There are chaining combos of abilities, and you can feel really clever as you line things up. And then activating those collapses, that is incredibly key. It gets things out of the way, because the game is throwing chaos at you. So the more you can remove cards from the timeline entirely, removing them from the chaos, and getting those good swaths of getting like 5 or 6 cards in a run at once in a single collapse, that is such a satisfying moment when it happens. I'd say usually I'm doing 2 to 4 cards. I'm trying to get at least 3, but I don't always do so. But when you can have those turns where you clear 5 or 6 cards, it is incredibly fun. And the ability to power past a difficult board state and do so successfully, that's where this game has all its charm, because it feels chaotic. It doesn't feel chaotic, it is chaotic. The game is throwing things at you constantly, and you're just trying to power past that. But the ability to do so, the ability to power past a difficult board state, a bunch of panic cards that got in your way, that's where this game shines. It's all about that ability to feel clever while you line things up. And then lastly, I'll throw in as a small little extra, it's fun the way the cards kind of create their own panorama. It's a nice little quality of life touch. I like it. It's fun. As far as things I don't like in the game, most of the game does come down to those last few turns. You're playing a management game the entire way through, but at the end of the day, I've had games where I felt completely in control until the end, and then just the way the end played out, there wasn't a lot that I could do. And then I've had games that felt completely chaotic, but I was able to make it all come together towards the end. Because it's only at the end where the panic stops happening, where you are no longer playing panic cards that get in your way, and that's where you can actually try to achieve total control with your last few cards. So you're kind of playing catch up the entire way through. It's kind of, you know what it's like? Here's a great analogy for those of you who have kids. This game is kind of like cleaning up after your kids, and then eventually the kids go to sleep. So you're constantly like, okay, I'm going to tidy this up over here. Oh no, now they just ate at the dinner and there's like a bowl that needs to be washed and this and that. And this is obviously age dependent on your kids. Your kids should hopefully be doing some degree of cleaning up after themselves. But my kids always have, depending on their age range, there's always some degree of tidying up. And this game feels like you're tidying up while your kids are playing. And it's only when the kids go to sleep that you really can actually get that, you can really actually be effective. The problem is, in this game, when the kids go to sleep, you're going to bed 25 minutes later. So you don't have a lot of time to actually clean up, even once the chaos is done. That's what this game is. It is tidying up after your kids, and then the last 20 minutes after the kids go to bed is when you can really see if you can fully clean the house before it all starts again the next day. And that's not a bad thing per se, but it just means that it means you're playing catch-up. You're not actually controlling, you're playing catch-up, and then when you collapse, you're throwing toys out so they no longer create a mess. I love this analogy. Honestly, this could probably be re-themed as a game where you're playing up after your kids. I think this would work well with parents. Ivy Studios, you should get on that. This was not on the game plan for this review, it just happened to go that way. Outside of that, there's not really, the other thing I don't like, not really a ton of replayability outside of the difficulty levels. Meaning in the game, I'm going to play the game, I'm going to figure out what I can do to solve it, and then I come back to it and I want to have a fun little like organization game, and then occasionally, when I feel better at Panic, I'll dive more into Total Panic and see if I can win that. But then there's not really anything keeping the game different. There's no goals, there's no mix-up, there's no abilities or events and all that. I mean, I guess you could argue that Panic is the event, but it doesn't feel like events, it feels like that's just the game. So there's not a lot of variability to this experience, it's kind of the same game every single time. As far as what I can see others not liking about the game, it's pure chaos. I mean, this is complete chaos. Some turns are really acting against you, some turns a little less so. A lot of it depends on the board state. Like, there's cards that will remove all the breaks, and the breaks are so helpful, or remove some breaks, I should say. And the breaks are so helpful. But the problem is, if you have that card when there's no breaks in play, boom, you got lucky. If you play that card when there's a bunch of breaks you're about to take advantage of, not so lucky. There's a lot of chaos here, a lot of randomness, a lot of luck. It does average out for the most part, but some games will be easier than others. When I say I have a 50% win rate at Panic, is that because I'm 50% good enough, or just because I'm just lucky enough sometimes and just unlucky enough other times? I don't know. This is chaos. Those kinds of things are play in this. And then lastly, I'll say there are memory elements to the game. I didn't really show you this, but you do have markers for some of the times you'll be placing cards face down and things like that. But other times you are kind of flipping cards face down. There's not really a marking system. So there is some degree of memory, how you choose to incorporate that in this group. Like, I don't think this is intended as a memory game, but there certainly are memory elements. You can figure out how you want to handle that as a group. For me, I just kind of deal with it and play with it. But if you don't like memory elements in an otherwise, I'd say strategy game, but there's also chaos and luck here as well. If you don't like memory, again, you could work your way around it. You can take notes. You can always use markers whenever a card's face down. Maybe the flip, because when a card flips face down, there's two elements that hurt you. One is, do you remember what's going on the board? And two is, you can't collapse cards that are face down, so you can't activate their abilities, so you can't engage with them in the same way. You could make this purely a strategy game, again, with the luck and chaos, by just choosing that face down cards that were flipped face down. You can always look at. That's just a choice you can engage with your group. I just play the game as it's stated, and it works fine enough for me. As far as final thoughts on Time to Panic, overall I enjoy this game. It's a pleasant and fun, chaotic experience, which are a hodgepodge of words that don't always go together, and I'm totally here for it. But I also don't think this is the kind of game that has longevity, with a caveat, because for me this game it's fun. I'm enjoying it. Every time I dive into it, I enjoy the organization of the cards. I do want to get to a point where I can win at least one game of Total Panic, but then from there the question is what happens next, and that's where I find myself comparing it to the game called The Mind, a game that I am a big fan of, which on the one hand also has no variability to the experience, and it's purely about getting that order in play. But for me personally, I've still had it in my collection for years, so it's managed to power past that lack of variability. But then the question is, will Time to Panic do the same? I don't know yet. What I do know is, for right now, I'm enjoying it. For right now, I'm enjoying the card organization. I'm enjoying the moments where I feel particularly clever, and I'm enjoying the wins that I sneak out and those turns where it just didn't make it work. I overall enjoy this one. This is a 3.5 out of 5. As far as game recommendations, I already mentioned one, but check out The Mind, a game all about being on the same wavelength with your teammates as you try to order cards and read when the right time to play them is, as well as The Game, a game that's much more about, and I know these are terrible names, The Mind, The Game, like Time to Panic, at least you can Google or whatnot, although who knows what shows up there. But The Game is a game about ordering cards directly in ascending or descending order. I'm pretty sure it's been a while since I played it, and that's purely kind of the same puzzle that's going on here, but this has a lot more chaos going on. I mentioned earlier our sponsor Allplay. If you want to check out another game all about ordering things, Allplay, if you go to allplay.com, they have a game called GPS. This is a competitive game about ordering things. Specifically, there are satellites you're trying to get in order as you play. You are using a fun little spinner, and then you're trying to plan out how your satellites get placed, as well as how they're going to move around the board. But this time, you're not working with people, you are working against them to be the first person to get all 12 of your satellites in order. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.